call me Mystic Mac because I predict these things.
Welcome back, guys. I'm going to give you my predictions and breakdowns for every fight at the upcoming UFC Fight Night card from the Apex, headlined by Dolidze versus Anthony Hernandez. Gonna run through all of my picks for the card. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And let's get into it. The first fight of the night is Julija Stoliarenko versus Gabriella Fernandes. I'm gonna go with Gabriella Fernandes in this one. Julija Stoliarenko, Hodger Gracie black belt, very good off of her back. Really good from the mount position, getting arm bars from everywhere. She's got arm bars over Molly McCann. Jessica Rose Clark dislocated both of their elbows, had several arm bar wins on the regional scene. So if she can get it to the ground, she's dangerous. She can finish you there. Throws a lot of heat on the feet, but really she's just trying to get you thinking that you're engaging. And then once you start to engage on the feet, she's slipping under with well-timed takedowns. Gabriella Fernandes, again, very technical on the feet, probably more explosive, more athletic, has more power, better striker. She's also a jiu-jitsu brown belt, so I think that she'll get the better on the feet, be able to defend the takedowns, and get a decision win over Julija Stoliarenko, who's 2-5 in the UFC. You know, very dangerous, but very inconsistent. You know, and Gabriella Fernandez's career, she's had some really good performances, really high-level, fun fight with Carly Judice, coming off of an upset win over Kong Wang, where she knocked her down and got the rear naked choke in round 2, and her only losses are to Teresa Bledza and Jasmine Jasudavicius, who very good grapplers, very good wrestling. I don't think that Julija Stoliarenko has the level of wrestling and takedown ability that these ladies do to kind of keep Gabriella Fernandez on her back the entire time. She kind of crashes in and just kind of works on timing as you're overextending, and I think Fernandez is just going to be a little bit too strong, too technical, managing the distance well to allow Stoliarenko to get the takedown and get to any dominant position to get that armbar. So I'm going to go with Gabriella Fernandez in that one. Moving on, Uros Medic takes on Gilbert Urbina. Both these guys, I'm not really sure about Uros Medic anymore. You know, I used to think he was pretty decent. But now he's shown an ability to get finished. Got finished pretty quickly by Punahele Soriano back in January, so I'm not really sure where his chin's at because got hurt by Joselyn Turner in their fight, and then got choked out, and that was at lightweight. His wins are against not the best competition. Got out grappled by Mikdebek Oralby, but that was on short notice replacement. But Gilbert Urbina, again, I just think he's kind of rudimentary on the feet. You know, he can be aggressive. We saw him get aggressive against Brian Battle in their fight. Had some decent grappling against Orion Kashi, but in the Charles Radke fight, he just couldn't get anything going. Had no presence in the cage. Didn't look like he really wanted to engage with Radke, even though he had a huge reach advantage over him, and ended up getting knocked out pretty much twice in that fight. So I think I'm going to go with Medic. I just think he's the more technical striker. If Gilbert Urbina can start working his takedowns and get Medic to the ground, I think he can win. That's the pathway to victory against Medic. But I think Uros is just a little bit better on the feet, a little bit more power, and a little bit more finishing ability. So I'm going to go with Uros Medic in this one to get the KO over Gilbert Urbina, who is pretty chinny and been KO'd several times now. Charles Radke, Trayshawn Gore, so can be hurt. So I'm going to go with Uros Medic to get this one done. Next up is Joselyn Edwards versus Priscila Cachoeira. I'm going to go with Joselyn Edwards. You know, very aggressive striker, heavy leg kicks, good feints, keeps her opponents on her toes, dynamic, athletic, mixes her targets up well. Priscila Cachoeira kind of relies on her right hand, kind of stands up tall, one and done type of striker. Doesn't really move out of the way or move her head off the center line when engaging, and can be hit. You know, absorbs a lot of strikes in her fights. So I'm going to go with Joselyn Edwards to get this one done. I think she'll just be the busier fighter. She's younger. I think she'll be more dynamic, more athletic, be able to defend any takedowns that Cachoeira brings her way, and get this one done by decision. Also, Cachoeira is taking it on short notice. Joselyn Edwards is supposed to be fighting Mayra Buena Silva, who had to pull out. So Joselyn Edwards, puts a lot of volume out there, has good pace, good cardio, taking on Cachoeira, who's taking the fight on short notice. She tends to fade later in fights as well. So I'm going to go with Joselyn Edwards, get this one done by decision. Elijah Smith takes on Toshiomi Kazama. I'm going to go with Elijah Smith. I just think he's the better athlete, better fighter, more willing to engage in a firefight and actually be in a fight Toshiomi Kazama, I mean, I see him in fights, he's getting hurt, things aren't going his way, and you can visibly see him like wincing in the cage, like, get me out of here, you know. And Elijah Smith's a dog. He's only been doing MMA for like 4 or 5 years since COVID started. Comes from a freestyle wrestling background, you know, state champion, wrestled in college for a little bit. He's just shown a lot of potential in the small amount of time that he's been doing this. He's only 22 years old, so he's going to be making drastic improvements, whereas Toshiomi Kazama, you know, jiu-jitsu brown belt, very explosive takedowns. He's just desperately trying to get the fight to the ground. He doesn't want to be on the feet. Been dropped 3 times in his last fights, KO'd twice, KO'd by flying knee before that. I think the fight to get him, get his shot in the UFC was a win on the road to the UFC over a guy who was 27-11 at the time. He's just taking tons of damage, and I don't think he's going to be able to get his takedowns to get Elijah Smith to a place where he can win this fight. So I'm going to go with Elijah Smith to get this one done. I think he can get the decision and just beat him up on the feet, or more than likely get the KO. Julius Walker takes on Rafael Cerqueira. So Julius Walker was perfect at 6-0 before he had his short notice fight against Alonzo Minifield that he took on, I think, 10 days notice. All of his 6 wins were by finish. And he had a really impressive showing of himself against somebody like Alonzo Minifield, who's very big, very experienced, can wrestle, hits like a truck, and he had a really good performance. Losing a split decision, you could argue he won it, but I thought that was very impressive of him. And he's young. I think he's like 25, 26. Yeah, he's 26 years old, not even in his prime yet. Big dude, 6'4", with 78-inch reach. All the time in the world to improve. And taking on Rafael Cerqueira, who's 35 years old. Also a big dude, 6'3", 76-inch reach, but you know, he was also undefeated heading into his UFC debut. He was 11-0. Got standing TKO'd by Ivo Aslan, where he just got rocked and then just kind of stood there and didn't move and got TKO'd, and the same kind of thing with Modestas Bukauskas. And I know these guys are good, but I can't pick you after performances like that, where you've landed 10 significant strikes in your 2 UFC fights. You've been knocked out twice. You've only been in the cage for a little over 3 minutes. Like, it's just not a lot of momentum. He hasn't really shown me anything yet that shows me that he's talented or deserves to be in the UFC. And obviously can be finished. It looks like he's got a lot of finishes on the regional scene, but you know, he's 7-0, 8-0, fighting guys that are 1-1, 0-1. So who knows the caliber of opponents that he's fighting. The guy that he fought before getting into the UFC was 6-3, now 6-4. So I just don't trust Rafael Cerqueira at this point in his career. He's getting up there in age, taking a lot of damage. So I'm gonna go with Julius Walker to get the KO or the decision in this one. Next up, Eryk Anders versus Christian Leroy Duncan. I'm going to go with CLD in this one. I think Christian Leroy Duncan is the much better guy on the feet. I think he's more explosive, manages his distance better, just more technical. He's going to be the longer fighter. He's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage. He's going to be much younger. He's going to be 8 years younger than Eryk Anders, who just doesn't have a good win in the UFC, honestly. He's coming off of a ground and pound win over Chris Weidman, but Chris Weidman gave up in that fight. Just gave up. He got dropped in that fight too. Was dropped by Jamie Pickett. Was dropped by Marc-Andre Barriault. Finished by Andre Muniz. You know, was knocked down like 4 times by Khalil Roundtree. So he's just too finishable for me. And at 38 years old, doesn't have a really a good win, in my opinion, in his entire career. Really, I mean, Darren Stewart, Kyle Dawkins, Jamie Pickett, Chris Weidman, like these are not top tier caliber fighters, and the guy that he's losing to, Marc-Andre Barriault, Jun Young Park, that's a good or not a bad loss. The Iron Turtle, he lost by split decision, but Andre Muniz, like a lot of these guys are just showing to not be top tier quality. And Christian Leroy Duncan, he looked really good, like very confident in his last fight against Pulyayev, just kind of beating him up, walking him down. He did lose to Gregory Rodriguez, but I can excuse that loss. Rodriguez is a stud. So Christian Leroy Duncan, younger, more explosive, more athletic, better striker, decent takedown defense at 72% to kind of take down or to defend the takedowns that Eryk Anders is going to try and bring to the fight. And I think he gets Eryk Anders out of there by KO. Next up, Miles Johns versus Jean Matsumoto. I'm going to go with Jean Matsumoto. Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai black belt, been training martial arts since he was like 6 years old. will stand and trade in the pocket, look to counter, kind of keep his hands up, but, he will bite down on his mouthpiece and engage. Doesn't have the best takedown defense, which is a concern against Miles Johns, but he does do a good job of scrambling back up to his feet. I think Dan Argueta got him down like 9 times. He was able to scramble back up to his feet and eventually get the finish. And Miles Johns kind of uses his wrestling in reverse, doesn't really shoot a lot of takedowns. It's more just kind of stand and bang and throw his big looping right hands, which is really all that he has. He's a standout wrestler, but he has a lot of power in the hands, and kind of throws one and done, big right hand. So really all you have to worry about is the takedown in the right hand from him. And I feel like he tends to gas later in the fight, so I think Jean Matsumoto is just much more well-rounded, better on the feet, better on the ground, probably not as good of a wrestler, but I think everything put together, he's able to scramble back up to his feet or threaten with submissions or just maintain distance against Miles Johns, who's going to be throwing 1 punch, maybe 2 punches, and John Matsumoto is going to be returning with multi-punch combinations. He extends his combinations very well, regardless of what's coming back his way. He was undefeated at 16-0, coming in off of a loss over Rob Font, which he took on short notice, lost by split decision. Very close fight. You could argue he won it, but regardless, Rob Font's a very tough dude, and he did very well on short notice against him. So I'm going to go with John Matsumoto. I think he gets this one done by decision. Next up, Andre Fili versus Christian Rodriguez. I'm going to go with Christian Rodriguez. It's hard to doubt Christian Rodriguez anymore. He's fraud-checked many of a young up-and-comer, Raul Rosas Jr., Cameron Simon, Isaac Dolgarian, Austin Bashi. Had a really good performance against Austin Bashi. Lost to Julian Erosa, which is weird. That was kind of a weird fight. He's getting kind of walked down and eventually got guillotine choked. Lost to Melquizael Costa in his last fight, but Costa is very good. I think he's very underrated. He's on a big streak of his own, I think, of like 4 or 5 fights. Yeah, 4 wins. And this is the first time he's really fighting an experienced vet, somebody who's not kind of on the come up. So it will be interesting to see if he can kind of hang with somebody like Fili, who's been in the UFC for so long. He's fought the who's who. He's also had tons of tread on the tires, He's been knocked out several times, can be finished. He's got really good movement, good striking, fights well on the back foot, decent wrestling, decent takedown defense. But I think Christian Rodriguez is just going to be a little bit better in terms of the forward pressure, the grappling, the striking, mixing in his strikes with his takedowns. Has very good choke game, Darce's power guillotines, anaconda chokes. Has power in his hands too, but usually he's, a lot of his fights you see him grappling just because he's either looking for the takedowns against guys who are good strikers, or he's having to defend the takedowns against people like Dolgarian, Bashi, Raul Rosas Jr. So be curious to see how he performs against a guy like Fili who doesn't want to grapple, who wants to keep it on the feet. But I do think that he'll be good at, pushing Fili back, getting respect with his hands, throwing big combinations, getting into the cage, dragging him to the ground. And I think he has the chin to take what's coming his way from Fili, and I think he'll have the better cardio. Sometimes you see Fili starting to gas towards the end of fights, and I think this is going to be a grappling, heavy, very fast-paced fight dictated by Christian Rodriguez. So I think he's going to get the win here. I could see him finding a choke in a scramble against Andre Fili and getting the win. Iasmin Lucindo takes on Angela Hill. Iasmin Lucindo was on a tear there for a little bit. Everybody thought she was the next big thing. Went pro at the age of 14, been in the UFC since 2022. Lost to Yasmin Uruguay in her UFC debut in a very high-level boxing match. Got four wins in a row before she ran up against Amanda Lemos. Couldn't get her takedowns, couldn't really get anything going. Looked like she started to kind of gas and lost that by decision. And Angela Hill, another crafty veteran like Amanda Lemos. She's 40 years old, 18-14, very deceiving record because she has fought a lot of good competition, and a lot of her losses that come by split decision, you can argue that she won. But she's fought everybody in women's MMA. Tabitha Ricci, Denise Gomez, beat Gomez, lost to Tabitha Ricci by decision, but just coming off of a win over Ketlin Souza, lost to Mackenzie Dern, beat Lupi Godinez, lost to Verna Jandaroba, Amanda Lemos, Tisa Pennington. A lot of these decisions you can argue went her way. So a lot of high-level experience for Angela Hill. So that's why I'm going to go with her in this one. I think she's a little bit crispier on the feet with a little bit more technical striking. Good jab, good feints, lots of volume, good pace and cardio, tons of experience. much more experienced than Iasmin Lucindo. There's nothing that Lucindo's going to be doing that she hasn't seen before. She's got 75% takedown defense, so I think she'll be able to kind of keep it on the feet and outpoint Iasmin Lucindo, who, you know, does have power, but she kind of just wings punches at times, looking to get her takedowns. She throws with bad intentions, really wide hooks, moves well laterally. She's a judo black belt, so she's looking to get her takedowns from like the body lock and the clinch position. But I feel like Angela Hill, with her experience and her takedown defense, her Muay Thai experience, I think she'll be good in the clinch, be able to, you know, defend a lot of the takedowns coming her way from Lucindo, because I think Hill will be stronger. I think she'll be the stronger fighter here, and we saw Iasmin Lucindo struggle against the stronger, more experienced vet in Amanda Lemos her last time out. So I think Angela Hill, maybe she gets taken down a few times, but stays safe, scrambles, gets back up to her feet to win the engagements on the feet and gets a decision in this one. Steve Erceg versus Ode Osbourne. So Steve Erceg was supposed to be fighting Alex Perez, who had to pull out, and then he was supposed to fight Hyung-Sung Park, who got pulled up to fight Tatsuro Taira last weekend. And now he's taking on Ode Osbourne, coming in off of a vicious knockout over Luis Garule back in April. Before that, had lost 3 straight fights. So been very 50-50 in his career. But he is a very good striker, you know, very fast, very powerful. He's probably going to have the speed advantage and the reach advantage in a lot of his fights. He was a standout high school wrestler, wrestled in college for a little bit, but doesn't have the best takedown defense regardless of that. But he does have good offensive wrestling. He'll mix in with his takedowns, jiu-jitsu purple belt. So he's got a lot of things, a lot of stats, and a lot of accolades. But I could say the exact same thing for Steve Erceg. And I think Steve Erceg gets this one done just because everything that Ode Osbourne does, I think he does a little bit better. Like Steve Erceg, he's a national wrestling champion from Australia, great boxing, jiu-jitsu black belt. So he's going to have the jiu-jitsu advantage in this one. I think his wrestling will be able to nullify Ode Osbourne's takedowns. I could see him mixing in his wrestling as well against Ode Osbourne. And I think his boxing is very good. I think he moves very well. I think his movement and his footwork will just be able to kind of negate the offense coming his way from Osbourne. I think he'll have the technical ability just to kind of outpoint Osbourne, land more volume as the fight goes on and just kind of take over. Ode Osbourne tends to gas as the fight progresses, and I think if this fight does go to the ground, we've seen Ode Osbourne, he can be controlled on the ground. He was controlled by Ronaldo Rodriguez in their fight, who's just kind of a blue belt. So I think if Steve Erceg can get it to the ground, I think he can have a lot of success there. He's also had the full camp. He's never had a cardio concern. He's gone 5 hard rounds against the best guys in the world, Moreno, Pantoja, coming in off a loss over Kai Kara France. But, you know, Kai Kara France is a top 5 guy. He's been a top 5 guy for a long time. So I think Steve Erceg has more ways to win this fight. I think he's more well-rounded. I think he does everything just a little bit better than Ode Osbourne. So I think he's going to get this one done. I think he'll outpoint Ode Osbourne. I don't think he'll get the finish by any means, but I think he'll get a decision win over Osbourne. And to the main event, Roman Dolidze versus Anthony Hernandez. You know, I was thinking about this fight, and I was thinking, you know, Anthony Hernandez, wrestling heavy, pressure personified. He's looking to drag you into deep waters, looking to throw hands, shoot takedowns, and just drown you. And this is a 5-round fight where, you know, he can push and drive a hard pace the first 2 rounds, maybe even lose them, and then take over as the fight progresses and win the last 3 rounds or get the finish. And Roman Dolidze, you know, he throws big clubbing right hands. He doesn't put a lot of volume out there. He gets a lot of respect on the feet to the point where he doesn't have to really push a high pace and really get tested, but he doesn't have better cardio than Anthony Hernandez. But the thing is he's got such a good ground game and just devastating leg lock game off of his back. Jiu-jitsu black belt, you know, very credentialed guy on the ground. It makes me wonder if he can kind of negate what's coming from Anthony Hernandez. If Anthony Hernandez will be hesitant to close the distance and engage for fear of getting chinned. If he'll be afraid to go to the ground with Roman Dolidze because he'll be rolling for legs and being very active off of his back. You know, we saw him get that, was it a calf slice or TKO over, what was his name? Jack Hermanson, which was super impressive. We saw him blow out Phil Haas's knee and then get him KO'd on the feet. But I just think I think Anthony Hernandez is going to be a little bit too good on the ground to let that happen to him. You know, he can be hit on the feet. We've seen him get hit by Holland, Shabazian. You know, Pereira was hitting him before he started to take over. And Dolidze, he's going to be the bigger, stronger guy. I think he's got more damage potential on the feet and on the ground. Just on the ground, he'll just rip limbs off of you if you let him. But I see Anthony Hernandez kind of slowly taking over as the fight progresses. You know, maybe he slugs it out with Roman Dolidze, gets him a little tired, makes him work really hard in rounds 1 and round 2, just defending punches, defending takedowns, not really committing to anything, maybe holding him up against the cage where he can make him work, sap his gas tank, but not really give him an opportunity to roll for a leg or to, you know, break anything off of him. And I just think Anthony Hernandez, eventually he's going to start getting his takedowns. Roman Dolidze is going to slow down. He's going to be able to settle into more dominant positions, stay safe, stay comfortable, stay on top. He has an uncanny way of kind of staying on top and reversing positions and things like that. And I think as the fight progresses, Anthony Hernandez will take over. Dolidze, you know, he's used to fighting at kind of a measured pace, so I think Hernandez will make it gritty, make him work, and start to take over, you know, into the second round, into the third round, and just start to kind of drown him in the later rounds. So I'm going to go with Anthony Hernandez to get this one done by decision. Let me know what you guys think, and appreciate you watching. Thanks.